Hello and welcome to ELL Plus. I'm Areej Zayat.
And I'm Lecourt. In this week's program.
As RAF jets bomb oil fields in Syria, Londoners have been taken in the results of last night's crucial government vote.
More details emerge of a new footbridge for East London. We have an exclusive interview with the architect.
We get an update from the trial Aravindan Balakrishnan, the cult leader accused of imprisoning his own daughter and other charges which he denies.
And we head to an exhibition in Peckham celebrating the life of the famous Nigerian environmentalist SaroWiwa.
In the early hours of this morning, RAF jets carried out the first airstrikes against ISIS in Syria. It comes hard on the heels of last night's Commons vote, where MPs approved the government's plan to join in military action in Syria.
It's an issue that has divided the country and many people in our local area. Tom Bateman has been assessing the mood outside Parliament.
We're here outside the Houses of Parliament, where last night MPs voted to begin airstrikes in Syria. This comes after 397 MPs gave the government motion a majority. That included 67 MPs from the Labour Party. One of those was local MP for Lewisham East, Heidi Alexander. She said that strikes were needed to crush ISIS. The vote was met with protests outside Parliament here. And it seems that public opinion in general remains divided. The Independent newspaper this morning reported that 80% of its readers were against military action. In our local area, people in Tower Hamlets were said by a local media source to be the most against military action in the entire country, while Hackney MP and local ally of Jeremy Corbyn, Diane Abbott, fiercely expressed her opposition. She told East London Lines that diplomacy and democracy would be the solution to the crisis. So it seems at this point tensions remain high, perhaps due to memories of previous British interventions in the Middle East, in Iraq and more recently in Libya.
And our correspondent, Tom Bateman, joins us now. First of all, Tom, it was a very emotional debate in the House of Commons, wasn't it?
It was. It was a debate that lasted around 10 hours. At times, the tone did get a little fractious, you could say. Quite often, this is because the Prime Minister refused on 12 separate occasions to apologise for remarks that he made in the run-up to the debate, which accused opponents of the plan to carry out airstrikes in Syria as terrorist sympathisers.
Can you update us on what's happening on the military front?
Well, today the RAF have been carrying out airstrikes on oil fields in the east of Syria. These have been launched from an RAF base in Cyprus, in Akrotiri. Equally at home, the political debate is continuing. The First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, has expressed her dismay at the decision to join military action. This could probably be because a lot of the aircraft involved in the raids are actually coming from RAF bases in Scotland.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. Another issue that's been generating strong feelings is the UN climate change summit known as COP21, taking place in Paris. On Sunday, there was a march in London by demonstrators protesting against climate change.
A similar march was scheduled to take place in Paris, but it was cancelled by the authorities because of new regulations following the Paris attacks. Our correspondent, Choi, investigates.
It's 3 weeks since the Paris attacks, in which 130 people were killed. Today, the Place de la République is still dominated by a memorial to the victims.
Because they're trying too much to put policemen and security everywhere, it kind of forbid us to do public gathering and everything, and so it rebels people against the government and policemen, which is exactly what the terrorists want.
On Sunday, a climate change march to mark the UN conference was cancelled in Paris. Instead, people filled the square with their shoes. In London, a march did take place. More than 70,000 people demonstrated in central London. We spoke with Julia, who was also present at the march.
I would start by saying that at the speeches in London, people were saying that we were here also to speak for the people of Paris and France, because they did not have the chance to speak for themselves and to have this opportunity to speak out.
Brandalism is a UK-based anti-advertising campaign. After taking over 360 advertising signs in the UK, the team of artists changed more than 600 advertising signs in Paris to make a stand against the UN climate talks. Luc Marcuse explains.
The French government's using the terrorist attacks as an excuse to ban all civil society protests. It's deeply absurd and ironic that the police have banned us from protesting. So the French government is just using this as a cover in order to not have any dissent around the COP, and that situation is unacceptable.
To welcome the climate change conference, the Eiffel Tower swapped her blue, white, and red dress for a green gown, the colors for environmentalism. Steve Choi, ELL Plus.
At Southwark Crown Court, the judge has begun summing up the evidence in the trial of Aravindan Balakrishnan, the cult leader accused of violently controlling and abusing his own child. Mr. Balakrishnan denies the charges, including rape, child cruelty, and false imprisonment. Danielle Tatton has this report from outside the courtroom.
Aravindan Balakrishnan, seen leaving court today. There are several counts for the jury to consider, 16 in total, including assault, indecent assault, rape, and unlawful imprisonment. Mr. Balakrishnan, leader of the Communist Collective, denies all of the charges and describes some of the claims as those of a fantasist. He says that windows and doors were locked to keep people out, not to keep people in, and that members of the collective ventured out in groups for their own safety. One of the alleged victims describes her time in the collective as rotting away in a shadow life. Another said that she didn't come forward sooner because she was ashamed and humiliated. The judge has reminded the jury to keep in mind that some of the events described by witnesses took place in the 1970s, when the world was a different place, and to remember that Mr. Balakrishnan is not on trial for his political beliefs. The judge will continue her summary of evidence tomorrow. Danielle Tatton, ELL Plus.
That report from our reporter in Southwark. We're going to take a break now.
Stay with us on ELL Plus News. When we come back, Bouchto will bring us his sports roundup.
Welcome back to ELL Plus.
Our top story today: British jets have carried out the first strikes against ISIS in Syria.
And after the sport, a special look about an exhibition of the life of the Nigerian environmentalist SaroWiwa.
This week, the mayor's office has revealed plans to build more Thames River crossings. Most of the proposed projects would be in East London, which has fewer bridges and tunnels than the west of the city. Tom Bateman went to find out about two of the projects that could be crossing the river in East London.
Here in Greenwich, journeys to other parts of London face a difficult barrier. The Thames used to be the heart of industry around here, but now it's making it hard for people to travel to work in other parts of the city. TfL is planning a new tunnel under the river, but it has met with some local opposition. The proposed route for the Silvertown Tunnel largely follows that of this, the Emirates Airline cable car. 3 years ago, London Mayor Boris Johnson spent £16 million of taxpayers' money building it, but the passenger numbers so far have been very low. Daily, it carries around 4,300 passengers. That's how many the tube network carries every 2 minutes. Lewisham and Tower Hamlets councils both oppose the tunnel, saying it'll cause traffic and air pollution in their boroughs. but the need remains for high-capacity river crossings in the east.
Well, I mean, there's a hierarchy of transport where you start with the most efficient and the cleanest ways, and that's walking and cycling. So you need more bridges, more crossings for people by bike and on foot. And if you do that, more people will be encouraged to go by bike and on foot. That'll alleviate traffic elsewhere in the area, because you don't just cross the river when you get in a car, you drive from your door to the door of the place you're going to. So you'd be reducing traffic on all the surrounding streets, you'd be reducing pollution. It's a kind of win-win-win-win-win situation if you spend the money instead on cycling and walking first.
A couple of miles upriver is the site for a crossing of a different kind. A bridge for cyclists and pedestrians with no room for cars. It'll connect Rotherhithe and Canary Wharf, making it easier for thousands of people to get to work. This design is part of a study that wanted to find out if more eco-friendly forms of transport could help solve East London's travel problems.
For people travelling to Canary Wharf to work at the moment, you have to either go through the foot tunnel at Greenwich if you're wanting to cycle, use the lifts and stairs there. It's clearly not designed for that and can't manage the demand. Or you have to, if you're very brave, negotiate the Rotherhithe tunnel, which I think if anybody's tried that in a car, you'll realise it's not a very safe or enjoyable environment.
We think for a bridge, for cycles, it's got to be easy to use. You've got to be able to get onto it easily. You've got to be able to get off it easily. And that was really the fundamental thinking, I think, behind here. And I think, if you just for a minute do compare it with perhaps some of the others, for example, the cable car, it's obviously difficult to get your bike up there into the cabin and then back out the other side. So.
The Mayor's office has unveiled plans for 13 new river crossings by 2050. The challenge for TfL will be to find an environmentally conscious way to keep a fast-growing city on the move. Tom Bateman, ELL+.
Despite London's wealth, there are thousands of homeless people living rough on the city streets. A special tour program gives homeless Londoners a chance to get back on their feet while providing sightseers with an insightful tour of their local borough. Jasmine went on one of the tours.
The number of homeless people in London has been consistently growing in recent years. Hackney has the third highest rate of homeless people in the capital. New and expensive developments are being built at a rate of knots, but there is very little new social housing. There is shelter for 2,000 homeless people in the East End, but thousands of others sleep rough every night.
I co-founded Unseen Tours in 2010 with a friend of mine, Lydia. When you're rough sleeping, it's really difficult to get a job. It's really difficult to even go for an interview. Where do you put your things? How do you get clean? All of those real barriers into work, as well as what we also found is the perceptions of people that we met around homelessness and homeless people were really negative.
Unseen Tours gives homeless people an income and a chance to re-enter the workforce. I met the Brick Lane tour guide, Pete, a university graduate that once worked in advertising who asked that we protect his identity.
I think that the government are not putting enough resources into tackling the problem, and the resources that are there, they're not being focused on the drug problem.
As a tourist, you see the same things over and over again, and I've been to London like 20 times now. So I wanted to see something different, and a tour guide like that knows really a place is awesome.
Over 7,500 people are recorded as being homeless in London, and that number has been rising consistently since 2007. The guides of Unseen Tours are proof that homelessness can happen to anyone, and the company really encourages people to rethink what their perspective is about being homeless. Jasmine Dyer, ELL+ News, London.
Let's take a look at all the latest sports news now with Majd. Hello Majd.
Hello,
what
Lina.
have you got for us today?
Hello Areej. Well, today I'm going to talk about Areej Chauhan, the young goalkeeper from India who faces deportation. I'm going to talk also about Crystal Palace's good performances recently, and I'm going to end with a quick word on basketball and the East London All-Stars team.
All right, let's get started.
Well, let's start with Areej Chauhan. Areej Chauhan is a young goalkeeper from India. She's the first Indian to play in the Women's English League, and she made history recently, becoming again the first Indian to win a major prize, which is the Women in Football Award. So the 22-year-old girl is facing some serious issues and is likely to be deported to her country.
Why so?
Well, it's all down to some visa issues. She graduated last year from Loughborough University and her student visa expires next January, so she hasn't been able to extend it.
But couldn't her team do anything to help her? Or anything
yes,
like
you're right, but in fact, West Ham United, which is her team, can't sponsor her. And the reason why is that the FA rules are very clear about this. Only the top two teams or the top two divisions in the football league are able to do this, and West Ham play in the third. So the future of Aditi is in jeopardy, and the young lady isn't giving up actually. She stated and made it clear that she will keep on playing football whatever happens.
All right, that's great news. What about Crystal Palace coming up
Yes,
next?
Crystal Palace Football Club are actually doing well. They had an astonishing 5-1 victory against Newcastle United last week, and the team is ranked among the top 10 clubs of the Barclays Premier League, with only 7 points difference between them and Manchester City, who top the league. So the club's strong performances don't go unnoticed, and many people are wondering or trying to figure out the secret behind these good results. And guess what? Alan Pardew, the head coach, has the answer. According to him, the fans' South London identity is the reason. He summed it up in 3 words: passion, dedication, and uniqueness. He praised the relentless support of the fans. So did the Premier League general manager, Richard Masters, who hailed Crystal Palace unique atmospheres.
So the players should be grateful to their fans.
Absolutely, Nina.
So what about basketball, Majd?
Yes, a quick word to end the sport review. I'm going to talk about the East London All-Stars, who had a disappointing trip to Suffolk. They lost their game against Ipswich Town, and although they dominated the first half of the game, they gave up and were caught up in the last quarter. So the home team won 73-69, which led them to secure the second place in the table, in the league table, and the East London All-Stars dropped to the 6th place of the league table. And that's all what I have for you today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Majd. Latest figures from the United Nations suggest that 1 in 3 women experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetimes. The figures coincide with a special international campaign for the elimination of violence against women.
And in London, a candlelit vigil has been held outside the Jack the Ripper Museum in Tower Hamlets. Demonstrators gathered outside the museum to remember the Ripper's victims from more than 100 years ago. Sherry reports.
There was a silent candlelit vigil outside Jack the Ripper Museum in Whitechapel. It was held in memory of the 5 women he killed and every woman who has been affected by violence. The atmosphere was cold and somber, almost like a funeral, but the speeches were full of emotion.
Mary Kelly,
we remember you.
All nameless women who have died through gender-based violence.
We remember them.
The speeches were followed by a candlelit march. The crowd walked down Cable Street to St. George in East Church for a memorial service for the victims. Everyone prayed for the souls of the victims and tied white ribbons around the branches of a tree in remembrance of them. Even the great-great-great-granddaughter of Catherine Eddowes, one of the 5 Ripper victims, was there to support the cause.
I would like to tell women to be strong, speak out, and don't be afraid to tell people what's going on and be strong.
Indeed, more women are speaking out and reporting crimes against them. The Crown Prosecution Service report for 2015 shows the number of convictions for violence against women and girls has increased almost 17%. The report says it's because of the success of the work the police and CPS have done to improve referral processes. However, domestic abuse is still the main problem when it comes to crime against women, with almost 93,000 prosecutions in the past year. Women's rights campaigners say places like the Jack the Ripper Museum are glorifying violence. That's why they chose it as a starting point.
People need to remember the women who were killed. They've been given no dignity even in death. Their mutilated bodies are decorating the wall of that place for people to pay money to look at, and that's wrong.
Although Jack the Ripper's murders are more than 100 years old, and the International Day to Eliminate Violence Against Women is only 16 years old. The campaigners feel that the problems they raise still exist today. Sherby, ELL+.
Peckham Platform Gallery is hosting an exhibition in memory of a famous Nigerian political activist who died campaigning for the environment 20 years ago.
Ken SaroWiwa has long been applauded for his contributions towards the environment and the Ogoni people of Niger Delta. Simisola Jasmine Jolaoso reports.
An activist, writer and television producer, Ken SaroWiwa was a man of many talents. He was killed in Nigeria 20 years ago by the government for speaking out against multinational oil companies, mainly Shell, who he accused of exploiting the land of the Ogoni people in the southeast of the country. For the month of November, the art gallery Peckham Platform is hosting a multimedia exhibition commemorating his life and death, entitled "Doing Nothing is Not an Option." Exhibits by the artist and playwright Michael Macmillan are on display, along with artworks from Nigerian-born Sakari Douglas Camp, CBE. There are also films produced by SaroWiwa himself. Gallery manager Tim Dixon explains what the exhibition reflects and its relation to South London.
So for this exhibition we worked with a campaigning organisation called Platform London, and we worked together to commission Michael to produce a series of works. So one of those pieces you'll see in the gallery here was a theatre production with a group called Theatre Peckham. So Theatre Peckham are a youth theatre group based in Peckham Library, and they have different workshops for singing, drama and dance that engage local young people in the performing arts.
The centrepiece of the exhibition is a picture of the Battle Bus, a sculpture created entirely from steel by Douglas Camp. She made it as a living memorial to Ken SaroWiwa.
I thought that for the living memorial I would make a bus, just because buses are used for political campaigns. A battle bus is a traditional way of campaigning around the country, and I also thought of buses that are libraries, you know, mobile libraries, a place of information, and Ken being a writer, this seemed to be the way to kind of echo his legacy by making a battle bus. And I also like the idea that it could be called Battle Bus because, you know, we had a campaign to fight.
The real battle bus was on display in London, but is currently stuck at the Nigerian border. The authorities have refused to let it out of the country. She says if she were to come face to face with Nigerian border officials, she'll give them a little message.
The activists that want to own this piece, that have been gifted this piece, are against violence. So what's there to be afraid of? Knowledge can only give us progress. So I'd give them a little pet talk like that.
A winner of the Right Livelihood Award and the Goldman Environmental Prize, Ken SaroWiwa's legacy lives on. Simisola Jasmine Jolaoso, ELL+.
Let's take a look ahead to the weather with Grace Lynn.
Hello. It was mild and dry last night in southeast London, with temperatures at 11 degrees Celsius overnight. This morning it was cloudy with some bright intervals. As we go through the afternoon, it will remain dry and will be brighter with temperatures reaching 14 degrees in some parts of London. This evening, it will be slightly colder with patches of light rain, so maybe you will need an umbrella. Overnight temperatures will drop to 7 degrees with some showers, and tomorrow will be better than today with sunny intervals, and it will still be very warm, with some temperatures around 11 degrees. As we move into the weekend, it will become very windy with further rain at times, but also some drier and brighter spells.
Thank you, Grace. That's it for now. Thank you for joining us.
We look forward to seeing you next week when we will be looking ahead to Christmas events taking place in East London and South London. Thanks for joining us.